you fundraise, you're successful. If you don't fundraise, you're not successful. I think that needs to be thrown out of the window. I wouldn't demonize having a plan B or having other ideas as well, as long as you know where you put your focus. Is that the journey of a startup is you start with 100% risk, and over time you reduce the risk. You realize that a lot of things that happen in the journey are sometimes hard work, sometimes they're just luck. Well, I did that mistake many times where I went into execution too quickly, which ended up with ideas not being good. So this is what we learned, that the validation phase at the beginning is everyone talks about it, but there is no real advice on how to.
I believe the growth of any business is related to the growth of the founder.
I think sometimes we overestimate our capabilities as founders.
Yeah. That's for
An entrepreneur needs to know everything. You don't have to be an expert in everything. It's on the founder to take in what makes sense and be able to block what doesn't make sense, even if it comes from someone who's super experienced. The challenge with that thought is that in the journey of entrepreneurship, outcome is never guaranteed. And at the beginning, I mean, there's this fear of an entrepreneur. Am I the right person? Can I do it? Can I not do it? And I was in that journey, but then at some point I realized, actually, I'm quite good.
Yeah. Ayham Gorani is a serial entrepreneur who has built and exited 4 companies across fintech, SaaS, and platform businesses. Now, as the co-founder of PEMO, he's on a mission to support SMEs across the MENA region with their all-in-one spend management software that gives entrepreneurs their time back and allows them to work on their businesses, not in it. In this episode, we get into why most startups fail to validate before they execute, why hiring more people can actually slow you down, why focusing on an exit is overrated, and the one lesson he discovered in his founder journey that changed everything. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Founder Connects podcast. We are very, very excited to welcome our upcoming guest of the month at Spotlight, Mr. Ayham Gorani. Ayham, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Khaled. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and we're so excited to have you, coming up as our guest of the month at Spotlight next month. For the people who don't know, guys, Founder Connects is the premium startup community in the MENA region. We have over 300 tech startups and founders. And every month we have these multiple monthly meetups that are happening across the region, whether it's for networking, finding a co-founder, and so much more. You can find all the links for that in our description below. We'll make sure to put all the links. And the reason we wanted to launch this podcast, Ayham, as I was telling you, just now off camera, is we wanted to, the whole community is about founders helping founders, right? And we wanted to shed a light on the realities of entrepreneurship, talk about the things that you don't see on LinkedIn, that you don't see on Instagram, the challenges with the fundraising or the relationships or the partner or the co-founder or the things that went wrong or the moment that it could have gone left, but it ended up, all working out. And we're trying to show people that the journey is the journey no matter where you're going. Everyone has their own, but there's always, any founder, we can always learn a lot from each other and from working together and collaborating. You have done, I think, 4 or 5 startups by now at this point, from Widget Labs, Alpha Apps, Fennec Ventures, and now you're at PEMO. So let's start the conversation here. Now, I always like to ask entrepreneurs who have done multiple businesses across so many different sectors, does it get easier the more you do it, or is every time you go into a brand new sector, like across your experience, is it just a brand new canvas and have to learn everything from scratch?
I think past experiences certainly help.
Okay.
However, each startup, as you said, is its own ecosystem, it's new learnings. And if you don't learn, if it's not challenging, then probably you're doing something not right. Because at the end, growth needs a new environment. And new environments come up with uncertainty, and you have to deal with uncertainty every new startup.
So uncertainties, as you know, uncertainty is the thing that never goes away, right? But as time has gone on, and to your point, when you gain more experience, because I'm always torn between, to your point, growth. To grow, you kind of have to have an open mind. But sometimes people get stuck in, oh, I've done this before, I know exactly how this is, I'm just going to repeat the process here. So how did you, on a personal level, continue to keep an open mind and be like, I know this, but I'm going to have to come look at this with fresh eyes?
I think the journey taught me that.
The journey taught you that. Okay.
Yeah. Having your own startups, you realize that a lot of things that happen on the journey are sometimes hard work, sometimes they're just luck.
Okay.
So, and sometimes realizing that is very important to humble ourselves. Sometimes we do everything right, but at the end, the circumstances are against us.
Yes.
So this gives you an humble, should humble people. Now, if you're exposed to uncertainty, you get used to these kind of events, and you realize that you have to have an open mind in order to accept them as they are. They're good or bad. These events happen to you, and you have to be really open-minded and accepting them.
Yeah. And you have to be, I guess, adaptable as well, because sometimes what you hear with a lot of founders is, because I always have this debate with people. Some people will tell you like, to be successful as an entrepreneur in your whatever venture you're doing, you need to dedicate like 100% of like your time and your focus. But then other people will tell you, but you should also have, let's say, a plan B if that doesn't work out. But me, in my mind, mentally, if I even have to think about a plan B, as just me on a personal level, I'm maybe priming myself that this might not work, which is not, in my experience at least, not very helpful in what I'm doing. So have you had that experience? Because I'm sure there must have been some of that.
Now, this is a sensitive topic. If you ask VCs, you have to focus on one thing, because their interest is that you dedicate your full time on one topic, which I understand any business needs full attention. Now, if you look at VCs, they have diversification in their plan. So I think as an entrepreneur, I wouldn't demonize having a plan B or having other ideas as well, as long as you know where you put your focus. If you are focusing on two things, I mean, if your time is dedicated on two things, you will do only 50% of the job. But if you have one primary source of work, then this is basically should take 99% of your attention. 1% can be done, can be explored other businesses or whatever you want to do. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, to be honest.
Okay. Did you go through those, I guess, you can call them, I guess, contingency plans across your startups, or was that the plan B concept and like maybe giving maybe 10% of that time to it, something that you learned later on in your founder journey?
I mean, right now I'm fully dedicated with PEMO.
Yeah.
However, I have another company that is running. Now, the other company, how much attention does it take from me? Not really much, minimal. And I don't see it as a plan B or contingency. I see there is a running business that works. And actually, I'm learning a lot from that business, and that these learnings I can bring back to PEMO. So this is how I think about it. It's not only about plan B, it's about exposure and learning as well.
Okay. So it's about exposure and it's about learning. And like you said, you can focusing on two things at once might not be the smartest, the smartest idea. But I always think about when. I think this is an interesting point. We talked about planning, right? So this is what we're talking about: planning, contingencies, but also what I've learned, first-time founders. Most of us don't start with a plan. We kind of, to your point, fall into something. We didn't know we were good at it, and then like one thing leads to another, and like all of a sudden you have a business. And everyone tells you from the conversations I've had, before you start any business, you have to do your market research for a year and whatever, which is also true. But my question is, I think there's like a balance you need to have, because a lot of times doing all that work could be the block that stops me from even starting this business. But on the other side, you can go down one way for like a year or two, only to realize, oops, I've been going, the wrong way. So what's your perspective on that?
Well, I did that mistake many times where I went into execution too quickly.
Okay.
Which ended up with ideas not being good. But during the journey, I learned a lot. So it depends on your situation in life, if you want to take that risk and execute and see where anything leads. And I think if you want to explore opportunities, you have to go on the street and learn. It's not a job that you do behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So what we call this is the validation process, basically.
Yeah.
The first phase of a business is validation, where you talk to a lot of people, you try to understand the problem. And I think you should spend significant time onto that, not into researching the market size, really identifying a problem and researching it in depth. And I think this is planning plus execution.
Yeah.
And I think this is the phase that is vital for any startup.
So if the planning phase is vital for every if the planning phase is vital for every startup, and like you said, sometimes you went into execution too quickly. To your point, could you share like one of these stories? Because I think because a lot of people are probably in that situation, you know, right now, or have just started that situation. So maybe if you could share a story from your experience, people could really relate and understand. Oh, that's why that was we executed too fast there.
So. If you read the books, there are a lot of books about how to start a startup.
I think a couple of them are here.
4 steps to epiphany and the lean startup and all these kind of books. And they tell you that you have to be lean. However, their lean approach is you have to build an MVP.
Yes.
And the MVP is basically to test. But building an MVP, until 2 years ago, was super expensive. It was not cheap, right? Even today, if you have these vibe coding tools, which makes it easier, but still, I mean, there's other work to be done before really going to an MVP. Now, during COVID, we had an idea that there will be a lot of freelancers.
Okay.
Let's say coaches being in sports or being in mental, and we believed that their ecosystem was really fragmented. They had something to charge the customers. They had a calendar system, which was offline. There were a lot of frictions. They were using different tools to collect money. And we thought probably it's a good idea to build one platform where they can organize all their work. And on paper, it looked really good. We also spoke to a few freelancers in that space, coaches basically. And what we realized is that, there was resonance. They wanted something like that. And we started building.
Okay.
We built the product and we tried to sell it. Nobody was using it. Then we built more features on it. Nobody was using it. So we built on top of something and nobody was using it. And what we realized is that our validation phase and how we asked the questions were totally wrong.
Interesting. Could you elaborate more on this point? Because I think this is very important for people to hear.
Yeah, everyone says you have to talk to customers, right?
Sure, yes.
But how do you talk to customers?
Good point. What question should I ask? And also which customer, I guess, to your point, is because I don't know if all feedback is equal. Is it?
No,
you know what I'm saying? Because if I speak to the wrong guy, he said it's bad, but he's not my customer. Should I take that on board or should I not? I think there's also something in there that you have to balance.
100%. And I mean, if you ask bad questions, you get bad answers as well. Right? If I tell you, Khalid, is this microphone a good one? You would tell me, yeah, it's a good one. You know, it's like, but I didn't ask you the right question. If I would ask you, Khalid, tell me your challenges with that microphone, I would get a totally different perspective.
Absolutely.
So how you frame the questions and what you ask makes out if a validation phase will be successful or not. So this is what we learned, that the validation phase at the beginning is everyone talks about it, but there is no real advice on how to do it.
Okay, so if I came to you, I'm like, I'm currently in this validation phase right now. 2 questions. From your experience, what are the maybe top 3 or 5 questions I should be asking every customer? And also, how much data and time and research do I need? Because I think that's also a point, because me and you could keep speaking to people and never start anything. And we could continue doing research, but there comes a point that when is it enough for you in your experience? I'm like, I think we're ready now.
That's a very good question. I think there's no good answer to that.
That's fine. Yeah, that's why it's a personal thing. Yeah.
I think validation, there are frameworks, but it's not something you say step 1, step 2, step 3. Every project, every idea has its own validation process. And you start, it's scientific in a sense, where you have experiments, and there are cheap experiments and expensive experiments. A cheap experiment is talking to someone. An expensive experiment is an MVP. So how we think about it is that the journey of a startup is you start with 100% risk, and over time you reduce the risk. And the more you reduce the risk, the more successful you're going to be. So we start with the experiments that are cheap, that even if they reduce the risk by 5%, it's good enough. You start with that. So you go phase after phase with the cheapest experiments, and then you build on top of that until you reach a stage where you say, okay, now is the time where I go all in. And this is how we think about it. And building this experiments and the scientific approach is for every startup slightly different.
For sure. But it's very interesting how you think of it. You think of it it's almost counterintuitive to what people normally think. You know, I think I have my startup, okay, I need to build. But the way you look at it is you build through it's about reducing risk. And when you have, I think using that as a metric can be a very helpful guide to you. Because I've never heard anyone talk about that. When did you realize that is what actually for you is more relevant than just building and adding new features and trying and so on?
I mean, I have a bias to building something because I'm from product myself.
Yeah, I know that's your background. I know.
Which makes it, we love to build products and then realize then we have to take a step back and really focus on that phase.
Yeah.
And this phase, to nail it, is kind of an art. It's super interesting. And I think people don't really focus on that phase enough.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. I've never heard anyone bring it up from that perspective. So when you talk about so you said you're a builder, right? Now, but you also have been an entrepreneur and co-founded many companies. Now, you as a builder know, since that's your tribe, builders are not necessarily the best entrepreneurs, right? Because they are experts at the product or whatever, but maybe the sales, the marketing, all the other elements they don't have. So for you, because even talking to you now, I'm like, I see how you have like both. I'm like, he's a builder, but he's quite a personable person. He knows how to talk, So was there like a big shift you had to make mentally, switching from I just build this app to now I need to run this team and manage people? Can you tell us what that experience was?
Yeah, I mean, a business is not built on one skill set, right? You need the builders, you need the commercial, you need the finance, you need all these tasks, these skills basically to build a successful business. And I think what I'm seeing in the market is sometimes startups tend to be either too much in the building and others that are too much in sales. And I think there has to be some kind of balance where a startup starts with building or starts with sales, for example, and then over time it switches to be more product heavy than sales heavy. And you have to balance it. Companies that are very sales heavy tend to fail after a few years. They're going to be successful at the beginning, but after a few years, their growth becomes slows down because the product is not good. And you have great product people that build and then they never commercialize it. True. So I think finding the balance here is right. For myself, when I came to the UAE 2011, I started my first business.
In Abu Dhabi, right?
In Abu Dhabi. And I was everything, right? I had to learn to sell. I had to learn to build. I have to learn to become a UX designer. So I was fortunate to be in that situation to learn it.
Sure.
And I'm sure not everyone had the privilege to be in that situation.
Yeah.
So in that case, you need partners to supplement your skill set.
Yeah. And I resonate with that a lot. As I was telling you, I've been doing this alone for like 6 years, the podcast and now the business side as well. So, everyone always tells you, you want to go far, you need people. If you want to, you can move fast. If you want to go fast, go alone. But to your point, what I learned in my experience, although maybe that was not the most efficient way to build and to accelerate, the fact that I had to learn every single part of the process now puts me in a unique position that, yeah, you might find editors, you can find this, you can find that, but you won't find someone who can pull all of it together. And that, like the time I paid an investment back then is now starting to pay off. Did you have 100%. A similar experience?
100%. And I think, sorry, I always say I think because I don't think there is any absolute truth in anything what I'm saying. But an entrepreneur needs to know everything. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you have to know about sales, about marketing, about product, about everything in order to hire the right people. If you don't know about it, you will not hire the right people because you cannot evaluate, and there's an asymmetry of information, basically. So, and learning today became much easier than before.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have these podcasts like this, YouTube, AI, there's so much. Yeah.
100%. But it's a big disadvantage if a founder alone doesn't know about all of the business.
Okay. To what then? Because I've heard this. I've heard people say this before. Then the question I get to is, to what degree of proficiency do I need as a base before I can actually evaluate, is this a good accountant? Is this a good CTO? Is this a good salesperson? You understand what I'm saying? Because also, it's a time investment as well. I need to focus here and I have things to do. So I understand what you're saying, but what's the next layer under that, in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, having a co-founder that is more proficient in these things helps if you don't have the time. But then you also have to have a real vetting process with the co-founder, because that's one of the biggest decisions you take, basically. For yourself, how much depth do you need to know about finance? Probably not a lot, but you need to ask the right questions in order to understand, is this guy, does he understand what he's doing, or she? Is she hardworking? What's the experience? And trying to evaluate. I think that's probably 10% of the knowledge of finance is enough in order to evaluate that.
Yeah. And I'm happy you brought up co-founders in the team. So I know you, your cousin Said? Yeah, you guys have, done multiple startups together, been working together for a very long time. And, some people will tell you, you should never work with your family or, do that. So I know you guys are cousins, but it's still family. Yeah. So I'm curious, how has that experience been for you working with Said, and what does he bring to the team that you feel like maybe either you lack or he's just much better at?
Yeah. I'm very grateful to have a co-founders, or in general. And with Said, it's a journey over many years that we have built. And the foundation of our collaboration is trust. I trust him fully, he trusts me fully. And this is very important between co-founders. If the trust is broken, it's very hard to work with a co-founder. So trust is a main element. Now, if someone is within the family, trust can be higher, not always, but I would assume you know the person. There's a similar mindset, there's similar values that you can build on. And it's very important that founders have similar values.
Yes.
Not the same, but similar values. So that helps. Being a family member or not, it comes with complications that sometimes with families, people talk, who's that?
Of course, yeah.
If you get around that, the rest is easy. I think, on the contrary, working with family is not a bad idea if there's trust and mutual respect.
Yeah. Because I've heard some stories where it's worked out amazingly well, and I've heard some disaster stories. Because to your point, a very good point you brought up is, since it's family, there's almost like this built-in trust already. You know what I'm saying? And that could be very helpful, or that could make me blind to see what's actually, might not be the right person for me. Love you, family, but yeah, let's maybe not work together as a business.
Yeah. And also, trust is built over time.
True.
It takes years to build a good relationship and trust, and
Yeah, and someone told me trust is such a sensitive thing. It takes years to build, but it can be destroyed in a second.
100%.
And like you're saying, I don't know if you can ever get it back.
Yeah. 100%. It takes time.
It takes time. Yeah. And so you and Saeed have been building, a couple of things together over time. So now I know you guys are working on PEMO together. So as you've gone through these these different verticals throughout your entrepreneurial journey, building teams obviously is one of the most important things. Now, as founders, obviously, I want to just touch on the co-founder aspect a little bit, because a lot of people that we speak to in the community sometimes are looking for a co-founder. But you don't know. To your point, how do I trust this person? It takes time. Who's the right, person to ask? So, I guess because Saeed might be a bit of an exception, but as you guys have been growing together and doing all these things, What are the kind of questions you would start asking people that became, your CTOs, other partners with you in the business to start this relationship? And when did you feel like, okay, I think this is the right person and we trust them now?
It's a very good question. I don't have a perfect answer for that. Today, if you ask me today, and if you ask me 5 years ago, probably what changed today is that I would focus more on the values of a person, trying to understand what they think, where they want to go in life, what kind of sacrifices they're willing to do or not do. And this kind of sacrifices shows you what the value system is, right? Some people are willing to sacrifice their being honest or dishonest, right? Other people are sacrificing their time. So sacrifices are on different dimensions, and depending on these sacrifices someone is going to take, you can evaluate his or her value system. And looking into the past, you can see basically where this goes, but actually you don't never have a full answer until you try.
Of course, for sure.
That's the problem.
For sure.
And it's a bit like marriage, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
At the end, sometimes it's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's part of choosing, and that's part of the risk you have to take.
Could you share a story? I don't need a name or whatever. Could you share a story of across your journey where, a hire just went, you were so sure about, but then it just went completely wrong with this person? And what did that teach you? Because I think there's a lot of insight in that experience.
At some point, I was really focusing on the experience of a person.
How long? How much? What have you done? How long?
Industry. And what I realized is that every startup is different, even if it's in the same sector, but a different market, a different segment means that everything is new. Now, sometimes a person that has done it before, as you mentioned before, is that they come in with certain ideas. And usually, if these people worked for an enterprise customer or larger company, this knowledge was not acquired by themselves. It was built within the organization. So they didn't really come up with these ideas. So they were indoctrinated basically with these ideas, and they hold them and they bring them to the new venture. Which brings us back to the topic of having an open mind.
There you go. Yeah. Exactly.
So there's the risk of having this kind of persona with someone who's super experienced that is not flexible enough in their thinking to see a problem, that to challenge the biases that someone has or the knowledge in order to learn from new and adapt it. So this is the challenge. Today I would think about it differently, not only focus on someone's experience, but did they acquire that experience themselves or not is important. And how flexible they are changing their mind and saying they are wrong.
When we're going to pin on the second part, but coming back to the first part for a second, on the acquire, did they, when you said were they indoctrinated or did they acquire it? What would be you personally as Ayham, your metric of, I can tell it was this person has acquired it, or he just repeating what he has learned? How do you differentiate that? Because I could be saying the same thing. I could be saying the same thing and it all sounds great. So how do you differentiate it?
I mean, you can see in the journey at what point did they join a company. Right?
Okay.
Was it already established, semi-established, or not established? If a company was really starting from scratch, then basically this person saw from 100% uncertainty to 50% uncertainty, and they dealt with that. Now, if you go later into the journey, you have seen part of the uncertainty uncovering. And it comes back to uncertainty and learning these things.
Very, very interesting. And, because I think typically, especially first-time founders, when you want to start building a board or start getting advice, we always typically we'll go to someone much older who has done it, who has built this and whatever. But I always also say one of the challenges when you're selecting boards, advisors, mentors, all these things is and it kind of touches on what you were talking about. If I built a successful business once upon a time, okay, that was 20 years ago. I haven't built a business since then, but I'm very successful.
Yeah.
How, if my question becomes, people become successful and then they become advisors. But my thing is, although there is value in your advice, if you're not a participant actively in the market in some way that you're learning more about this space, how useful is that advice to me today? Not that it's bad advice, it's just how useful is that to me today? Does that sound, I feel that's kind of what you're saying as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's a very good point. As a founder, you talk to a lot of people, you get advice from a lot of people. And I think that's the art of the founder, basically, to be able to take in all the feedback and build your own opinion. And I learned that myself as well. Starting with PEMO, I was probably listening a bit too much to the market or to the people, where certain opinions were held. And at some point in the journey, I realized I have to have my own opinion that I believe in, and build my own ideas that I really believe in and stand behind them. So it's on the founder to take in what makes sense and be able to block what doesn't make sense, even if it comes from someone who's super experienced and has been in the market. But it's our job to basically filter.
Now, this is such a great point that you mentioned, Ayham, because this is something we all struggle with. Not just if you're a first-time founder, just in life. People they might have the best intentions of advising you, but it might not be the best advice, or might not be something you even want to do. Like, okay, this is the path you'll make money, but I don't want to do that. Should I, go do that?
Yeah.
So, could you share a story about something like this? Let's say someone was telling you, like, giving you advice, and because saying what you said is fantastic, but I would love if you could elaborate more on that, because I want people to understand, how did you come to that decision? I'm like, okay, I've heard him. Taking all that in, doing my analysis, this is how I came to my decision that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah. When we started fundraising with PEMO, it was beginning of 2022. Money was available in the market. It was easy to get, and as money was available, the advice of investors or VCs was grow at any cost. Be inefficient as possible, grow where you can, because money is for free. 6 months later, things changed.
There's like a funding winter, right? In a way.
The opinion in the market changed. You have to be efficient. You have to be profitable. Then it changed again. You have to grow. You have to expand quickly. And it changes over time. And you see that opinions are sometimes linked to the macro.
That's such a great point, bro. I never thought of that. That's such a great point. Very true.
However, I was reflecting on myself, what kind of business do I want to build? And I want to build a business that is sustainable, that can be there for the next 10 years and not be affected every 6 months depending on the macro. And what is that way of doing? It's building a proper business, basically. Yeah. And this is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah. And that is, that's such a great point that you mentioned about the macro, because we never talk about it. But look, even with everything that's been going on here the last couple of months, in this region, the last couple of months, when you said that, I started to think, reflect on the conversations I'm having with people, like, everyone's, defense, everyone's playing safe, we don't want to do that. So my advice to you when things are like this is be like, defend, protect, save, whatever. But, inshallah, in the future, when things are back to normal, it'll be like, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
But I never made that link. And that's because I also think if you look, I was talking to someone about this, look at like back in 2008 with the recession and all these things that happened. When things are bad, people want to play defense. But if you look historically, there's some people who are brave enough to play offense in that time, where attention was undervalued, real estate was undervalued, whatever it was, that made those decisions when everyone's like, no, you shouldn't. But really when everything went back to normal, they were the ones that stood out compared to then. So I'm always trying, even when things are not looking too great, I'm like, how do we take advantage of this? And I feel like that's kind of what you've been going through as well.
So it's a very good point. A crisis is a good time to change
Yeah.
and push for more. And what I mean by unsustainable growth is growth where your unit economics is not good.
Okay.
Meaning that you overspend on acquisition and you don't know if you're ever going to get the money back. And we have seen a lot of startups in the 2020, 2021 that received millions and millions and started to launch products that didn't make any sense. And a few years later, they went
Bust.
bust. So unit economic is a point. And the unit economics really defines how fast you should grow or not.
Fair enough. I can understand that. And you've talked about how I really love this quote. Growth comes when there's no one else to blame. And now, as a founder, you've had that experience doing it alone. I'm doing it alone. It's really difficult to wake up every day and be like, if today was great, it's my fault. And if today was bad, it's my fault. Like that level of accountability that you're forced to have with yourself is quite challenging, I think, for people sometimes. But also you have to realize that, at least in my experience, I believe the growth of any business is related to the growth of the founder. I think you are the block, whether it's you alone or you with a full team and a business. Your level of growth, I believe, will dictate the level of your business growth. What's your perspective?
I would agree to that. That the founders have a big role in the success of a company. Also, an argument which might be a bit challenge is that sometimes timing and the right market has also a big role to play.
Very true.
So I think, yes, founders are important, but sometimes it's a constellation of many points. And I think sometimes we overestimate our capabilities as founders.
Yeah, that's for sure. That one hit home for me for sure. I think that's very true, and I think
I mean, just put in a different way.
Yeah,
an amazing founder would not do well in a bad market, in a bad industry. A mediocre founder will do great, above average, in a good market and a good time. Yeah.
So on that, I'm happy you brought up those two other elements because they are genuine elements. You might as a founder have all the skills needed to make it work, but wrong market, wrong time. Maybe you're early, maybe you're too late. Whatever that might be. But I guess for you, when you reflect on your experience on the ones you've exited, the ones that you kept, how did you make the decision to move on and to leave? Because a lot of times people are like, and this is a whole other debate. People that are founders that are be like, yeah, I'm building this, I want to exit in 5 years. And you can find a million podcasts that be like, great idea, very, very good. And then there's others that will come and tell you, hey man, if you're already building, just thinking about the exit in mind, you're not thinking long-term and you're not thinking sustainably and might take away from what you could actually accomplish. So what's your 2 cents on that debate?
I think the motivation to build a company to exit is not intrinsically wrong, I would say.
Yeah.
However, the challenge with that thought is that in the journey of entrepreneurship, outcome is never guaranteed.
True.
Right? What is guaranteed is the journey and the growth during that journey. So someone who says, I want to exit in 5 years, 95% of the times they will be very disappointed because it's not going to happen. So focusing too much on the exit or the end goal is probably overrated. I think people should really, or entrepreneurs should focus on how can I learn in that journey and how can I grow and create value. Whatever comes later will come.
Yeah.
But if my whole attention is on the end goal, 95% of the cases startups fail.
True.
99% don't have an exit. So it's going to be a major disappointment for that person. And I think that should not be the case for entrepreneurship. It should be growth, it should be fun, and it doesn't work the first time, second time it will work.
Happy you brought that up, because a lot of people, a lot of founders, if it didn't work out the first time, maybe I would start thinking, hey man, maybe I'm just not a good entrepreneur, maybe I'm a bad founder. Why should I go try again? I'll just go get a job and have my 9 to 5 paycheck every month, whatever. So but you've built multiple businesses, whether successfully or like the ones that worked, the ones that didn't. So my question is, what keeps you going through those failures and being like, that's okay, that problem didn't work out, but this is a new problem that I want to I want to tackle. That emotional thing can be quite heavy sometimes.
I mean, at the beginning of my journey, I graduated and started my first company directly. So
Widget Lab?
Widget Labs, yeah. So at some point, there was no option to go back being employed, because I felt for myself that I was unemployable after 3-4 years. I didn't have this career of going consultant and then going out and then can come back again. So like 3-4 years after my graduation, even if I wanted to be hired, I felt I was not a good hire for these. So I was forced in that journey. So with all honesty.
No, thank you. I appreciate the honesty.
But later on, why do I continue doing what I do? Because I just love building.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine myself not building, whatever it is.
Yeah. That's just
it
fuels you. That's the thing.
Yeah. I always wanted to build something, create something, and even if for the most part of my journey, I made less money than anyone else of my peers. However, I was happy because I was building.
Yeah, and it was for you.
Yeah.
At the same time, but you mentioned a very great point that I didn't consider. Because and this kind of comes back to like the plan Bs, where we started the conversation, having contingency. Sometimes people might be a founder, they might fail, and then okay, I want to go back. I'll go back into the working world. But like now you said to your point, but I haven't been working for a company for like 4 or 5 years I don't have the, how do I phrase this? The corporate world experience badge that they look at to hire me. But I went and tried to build a business for 5 years and ran it for 5 years. There's no, this is very interesting. There's no how do I judge you? Because I can look at it 2 ways. I can be the asshole and be like, I judge you, oh, he failed, so he's probably gonna come and fail with us, so we don't want him. Or I could be like, yo, this guy built a business for 5 years. Okay, it didn't work out in the end, but imagine what he learned, networking skills and that. So there's no fair comparison metric to go back to that side. But to come to this side, it's a free game because anyone can.
That's true. And I also believe that 10 years ago, it was much harder for such a person to find a job. Because
a founder back then, okay.
Yeah, someone who was a founder and then goes back to an enterprise or to a larger company, they didn't have the jobs that needed creativity or this kind of skill set. Today, I think even the larger companies, they have innovation, digital, they have this kind of jobs that might be relevant for that skill set. So probably today it's easier than 10 years ago.
Okay.
But still there is being able to judge, because people hire people from employees from McKinsey because there's a badge on it.
Exactly, yeah.
For entrepreneurs, it's very hard to say, okay, did it fail because it was the wrong time, or did it fail because he was not good? So it's very hard to judge, right?
It's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true. It's very hard to make that distinction, right? Because depending what lens you look at it from, will come up with 2 completely different answers for you.
Yeah.
Right. So we talked about it's been such a fun conversation diving into all these little areas of the founder journey and so on. But I wanted to come on to PEMO for a second, talk more about PEMO. So from what I've understood, you guys are building the all-in-one spend management software that empowers your business. But for the people who don't know, why don't you tell us what PEMO is and why did you decide to enter, this space? What was the gap that you saw in the market?
I have a company called Alpha Apps. 2016, 17. I spoke to a few people, and the idea came to my mind that you have to be working on your business and not in your business, which means on your business that you have to create the processes, you have to make yourself as a CEO or founder redundant. So the company can
Run without you.
operate, not by yourself. Because if that's not the case, you're not a founder or CEO, you're an employee. So that idea, I said, okay, I want to take that business and I want to make myself redundant so it operates without myself. So I started to automate, to put processes for the team on the product side, on all the elements. However, the part that I couldn't really automate was the finance part, the accounting and finance. And it's also a piece of the business that I don't enjoy a lot.
Okay, yeah, fair, yeah, fair, yeah. Everyone has things we hate. Yeah, for sure.
With all respect of people working in that field.
Yeah, fair.
And I had a lot of challenges, and I didn't find the tools that really could help in automating these processes. I did research about what can be done. One of the elements was expense management, which could be automated. And I looked into Europe. I wanted to start something in Europe, but I felt it was a bit too late. There were 2 startups in seed stage, and I said, okay, the idea is there. And then I stopped. When I discussed the idea locally with banks, with issuers, there was no way to build something like PEMO. And I parked the idea until late 2021 when I saw that the fintech infrastructure is evolving.
Yeah, big
and
time.
This is where I start talking about timing.
Yeah, by the way, true, very true, very relevant, yeah.
And we started, and it was the perfect timing for our space. I wasn't the only one thinking about that. When we fundraised in 2022, there were around 12 companies fundraising as well in the same space. Now there are only 2 or 3 in the market, but it was quite interesting. So the main concept, what I always wanted to do, I wanted to help SMBs to operate better.
Yeah.
And I've focused on the finance part. And it started with cards and expense management. But our vision today is really we want to do the work of a finance team for SMBs because they cannot afford a finance team.
Okay, interesting. It's very interesting. It's so funny how, I love a story like that because you see how an idea evolves, something from Alpha Apps back in the day, somehow led to all these little transitions that led to, doing what you've done now with PEMO. Now, I know you guys raised, you said in 2022, right? If I'm not mistaken, I don't know, competitor, yeah. You raised $7 million in pre-Series A in November 2024. Is that correct?
We had a pre-Series A 2024, yes.
Great. But if I'm not mistaken, a competitor you were saying also raised at the same time as you guys were raising, right?
So yeah, we all started the same. Some people raised the Series A already, some people not, depending on the timing.
So the question I want to bring this, the reason I bring this up, because I want to start talking about the competitor and fundraising discussion, because you said just now, you're like, I want to start something in Europe, but I saw there were 2 companies already at the seed stage. The idea is there. There's no reason, maybe that's not the market for this. But when you came here, the timing, like you said, in 2021, when fintech, evolved, the timing was right, so it made sense. Now, you're in this space, you said you and, your competitors raised at the same time. And when you're going through when you're fundraising at the same time as another company that has also a similar idea, competition is a very, everyone's in competition with each other. But the question always becomes, this is always a debate, should I pay attention to what's going on over there, or should I have blinders on and just focus on what I'm doing? It's probably somewhere in the middle, but how do you look at competition, I guess?
Very good question. At the beginning, where we didn't have our own clear vision what we wanted to be, we were looking a lot outside. And it was natural because everyone had the same infrastructure and was limited with a certain amount of things they could do. So it was not a path where I could build a totally different product than my competitors, because we are all bound to the same regulations and to the same infrastructure. Now, and therefore, it's always looking, what do the others do? What can we do? And I think everyone in the market
Of
was
course,
looking
yeah,
across.
for sure.
Now, I think, like since a year, we have built our own opinion where we want to be, what we want to be.
Okay.
And now we look more inside than outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy you brought up this point. And like you said at the beginning, because I think the point you mentioned is so relevant. Because at the beginning, until you find your lane, you're always gonna be looking around to be like, oh, they're kind of in mine. What are they doing? Maybe they have good ideas. Maybe I should be doing this.
Yeah.
But the question, I was watching a podcast yesterday and with Alex Hormozy on Diary CEO. And man, when I hear this guy talk, there's some people, I don't know, they just can communicate in a way that makes sense to you. So when he was talking about like the competition and like looking away and stuff, he's like, if you always are focusing just on like the competition, you're never going to build your own path to success. Because if you just keep following what they're doing, they're successful because of what they're doing. Don't try to be better at them than what they are already good at. Find out where you can be better in, a different field. So when you came to the past couple of years with PEMO, you said it was a start off like a finance team, but even listening to you, the vision, the focus, gets filtered over time. Kind of like what we're talking, you had the feedback, you have success, customers, okay, they don't like this. You drill till you get to that point. But I also feel like, to your point, when there's so much noise around you, as we were saying earlier, it's hard to make your own opinion, and lots of good ideas sound good. And we talked about experimentation as well, but you need to give things time as well to judge, was this really right or was it wrong? Because if you just keep experiment, change, you're not gonna get the real answer. So how do you look at experimentation and the time that, in your opinion, has been fair to test?
Very good question. What is the right time to take a decision on whether an idea was good or bad, right? Is that how I can think about it?
Basically, yeah.
I'm thinking about our journey, what I don't have a clear example how to judge that, because there are examples where you know exactly after 2 days that is a bad idea, and sometimes it takes a year or 2 years to know if it's a good or bad idea. Is there any framework I would apply? I'm thinking of how we think about these challenges. Nothing comes to my mind right now, Khalid.
Okay,
Sorry.
no.
I don't want to say anything.
No, bro, that's perfectly fine. But you just said something important. There's some, in 2 days I knew, and there's some I found out after a year. So do you have examples of those? The ones that you're like, oh yeah, after a second you're like, no, we're not doing this, and one that you're like, we're pretty sure this is it, but after a year you're like, maybe we just, not that it's wrong, but we need to refine this into doing something else.
I would say our approach as a company changed a lot.
Your approach as a company changed a lot.
Company,
Okay.
How we operate changed a lot.
Okay.
At the beginning, we were really convinced that throwing money at the problem is the right way to grow. Now we think much more efficient, and and this was basically a journey where as a startup that is well funded, you try to run fast, but sometimes hiring more people is counterproductive. And this is what we learned as well.
Yeah.
That hiring multiple people in the same organization, you think you would run faster, but it slows you down actually. So that is a learning that we had.
Interesting.
And now with AI, we totally switched our thinking. That was probably one learning that we had, and I didn't know. If you asked me 5 years ago what's the right approach, I wouldn't be able to say what's the right approach.
Fair. But look, it's funny how, it's counterintuitive, because you think like, oh, we raised, gotta hire, and go. But sometimes And also, because you have to, like, the second layer on top of what you said of hiring people is, I think culture plays a very important role in any startup, you know. And there's so many books that'll tell you when it's if it's you as a founder, cool. 1 to 3 people, cool. 1 to 10. But as you start growing, maintaining that culture becomes difficult. And if you just raise and hire like 100 people at the same time, people do it. It's not that it doesn't and it can't work, but to your point, it might not be the most efficient. And what I've learned in my experience, not just in business, but as people, human beings struggle to live in the gray, in the middle. You know, because life is much easier when it's like I'm either this extreme or this extreme. But I don't know why. I don't know why this happens to all of us. We start on one extreme. We don't come to the middle. Learn from this. We go the other way, and then we're like, okay, fine. And then we seem to find that middle. Did you have that experience? Did you have a similar experience of like you were this and that, and now then you figured out, no, this is the happy middle we need to be at.
Yeah, for me, 100%. I mean, raising external money at PEMO was for me the first experience of getting external money. I always grew my companies organically.
Oh, so everything was bootstrapped until PEMO. So why was PEMO the one that you decided? Sorry to interrupt you, but why was the one you're like, this is the one we need to fundraise for?
I wasn't really fundraising. I was bootstrapping it at the beginning, but then we saw so much interest into PEMO that we said, okay, let's fundraise, because it was not hard at that time to fundraise, to be honest. So and I think we're grateful that we fundraised, because there was a lot of competition and we needed that money, basically. But back to the point, and then having money, I had to learn new skills.
Of course, how do I spend it right?
How do I spend it right? Yeah. How do I also think a bit not too efficient, because I need to grow.
Yeah,
I need to do mistakes.
You have the bootstrapping experience of as efficient as possible, right?
Yeah. So now is a different extreme, and then you said I went to an extreme where I tried it. I had to learn, and I also had to learn what to do and what not to do. And one compromise, as you said, that is taken sometimes is that by growing too fast, the wrong culture is instilled in the company. And at some point, we had this challenge.
Yeah, you had that challenge as well.
We needed to change, because you attract sometimes with money the wrong personas into the company.
True. And people always, you know, I hear a lot of people say, hire slow, fire fast. But there's always that sunk cost that we have, like, oh, but man, I spent 6 months getting this guy, hiring him. Let him stay a little bit, you know, longer. Maybe, you know, it'll work out. Have you learned through your experience, because, you know, hiring people across different companies, of like, yeah, this guy, like I feel like with experience, you start to get a sense, you know, you're like, yep, this guy is not ready. But also, to your point, as we were saying earlier, did a business fail because of the founder, or was it the market, was it the timing? Did this person I hired do badly at the job because they're genuinely bad at their job, or is it a lack of certain information? Is it a personal thing? Is it whatever? And it's always, I feel, with people, it's also very hard to judge. And I'm gonna bring back this question again. There's also a time factor.
Yeah.
What if you were great for the first 6, but shit for the last 6? How do I evaluate you? What's the fair way to do it? What if you were bad and then I let you go, but then you turned out to be this amazing guy? Yeah. There's also that balance.
So probably taking a step back and not seeing it as a personal issue is always helpful for me. I try not to say that someone is good or bad. I try to say, as you said, did I choose the right person for the right job?
Yeah.
When we hired, I can remember that was a really painful experience. We hired a fantastic product manager that worked for a similar company outside UAE, and we got him to the UAE, him and his family, and we realized that 2 or 3 months down the journey that he was not the right fit. Not because he was bad, he was just not the right person for that job at the stage we were in.
That's a great point. The stage you were in.
He was in an established company. He was doing really good into analyzing, understanding, but we needed somebody who was more executional.
Yeah.
And that was my mistake. It wasn't the mistake of the person. So, yeah, sometimes just abstracting that helps us to understand where the challenges are in hiring.
Yeah.
And another learning that we had is that we should not be afraid in letting people go if they're not the right fit. And I think fear is a big factor.
Yes, 100%. Well said.
For example, if someone has somebody in marketing, let's say, then the founder says, even if he's 50%, if he's gone, I'm at 0%. What shall I do? My whole company will go down. So it's a fear-driven decision rather than growth mindset.
Yes.
And I think as founders, we should have a more optimistic and growth mindset. And this is what my team tells me. I'm a very optimistic person always. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be optimistic. Otherwise, you will not be able to grow.
That's, yeah. Yeah. I don't know if, optimistic. That's an interesting one because, what's different? Okay. Let me ask you this. Is being optimistic and believing in what I'm doing the same thing?
Good question. In some kind, if you are believing in what you do, you are optimistic.
You're hopeful about it, right?
Hopeful,
Yeah.
And also, I mean, we went through a lot of challenges. Last year, we have expanded to Saudi, and then the program was shut, then whatever. A lot of challenges that happened. If I would be a pessimistic person, I would have been very frustrated and not able to go over it. But then being optimistic, I told my whole team, listen guys, this is an opportunity for us. Let's take this opportunity, let's build on top of that. And this is what I mean with being optimistic.
Okay.
Not seeing the challenge, seeing the opportunities in that challenge. The same happened with the political situation in UAE, right? I mean, in March, it has been a very scary time for a lot of people and a lot of businesses in UAE. And we could have looked at it, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
Or we can see what is the best we can take out of that situation. And this is what I mean by being optimistic.
Yeah. Find the silver lining in a way. Find the silver lining in the bad, in a sense. You know, there's always something you can learn, grab onto, or like move forward from. If I've understood correctly.
Yeah. Or you can say everything's bad.
Yeah.
You focus on that. You know, you just focus on that. Yeah.
That's very true. I wanted to ask. So, as I was saying with the podcast, we've talked today about so many different. It's been such a fun conversation. So many different challenges, ideas, culture, team, fundraising, bootstrapping. Let me pin that for a second. We're gonna come back to it. But one of the things we wanted to highlight, if you're comfortable to share with us, do you have a story of where, like, I kind of look at it as like the turning point, the inflection point where either it could have gone this way, but it ended up actually working out, and what's the story, and what was the decision that you took at that time that led to, you know, whatever outcome happened?
I mentioned our expansion plans to Saudi and that being stopped. Now, that had to change our whole strategy, how we think about fundraising, how we position ourselves in the market, how we think about expansion. So that was a very critical time for us to sharpen our pencils, basically, and write down a strategy and who we want to be. And we have done that. And by doing that, we became much more focused on what we were doing. And our fundraising and growth has been dependent on our new strategy, which came basically from a crisis, basically.
Yeah.
So that is really what gave us the opinion who we want to be. And we are very proud of who we are today.
Yeah.
And what vision we fulfill. So we're very grateful of these challenges that shaped us.
Yeah, they do, of
way.
course, yeah.
And this is going to help us to make PEMO hopefully a sustainable, valuable company in the future.
No, for sure, man. No, look, I love that. I love that example because because someone could look at that situation very pessimistically, as you say, and like, oh my god, it was such a big opportunity, but you guys are like, okay, you know what, fine, but why didn't this work? What's going, like, something happened, right? So let's take a step back, let's reframe, rework, and it sounds like you have a much clearer direction and path right now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you talk about, so you said with PEMO was the first time you fundraised. Now, a lot of founders, I think, are, chasing fundraising without asking the right questions of, do I even need to fundraise? Can I bootstrap this? Why, from your experience at least, because you bootstrap, you're almost the opposite. Very rarely is it mostly bootstrapped and fundraised. Usually it's fundraised and there was one or two bootstraps in there. So what are people getting wrong in that thought process of the fundraising aspect? How I know everyone will give you a different answer of depends on the market, depends on this, but just from a mindset perspective, I don't think they're thinking about the point right to start.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yesterday we had a discussion with my team that sometimes people think that fundraising is success metrics, right? I mean, if you fundraise, you're successful. If you don't fundraise, you're not successful. I think that needs to be thrown out of the window. Fundraising is not the success metric. Success is really having a successful business. So this is the mindset, and even a lot of founders are too focused on that point, that they prove themselves. They think that raising funds they have been successful. So there's this kind of bias in a lot of founders, and yeah, in general, why should someone fundraise? I would only fundraise in a market that has a huge TAM, because that is what VC want. They don't want to play in small markets. So if your addressable market or your business cannot grow massively, it's not worth for VCs. So you're wasting your time actually.
Yeah.
And the second point is, do you have competition? If you have a lot of competition, then you also need the money in order to compete. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to compete. So these are the 2 points. Now, interesting, the challenge here is that usually markets that are lucrative and are big have competition.
True, yeah, true.
Otherwise, it is too. And if you don't have competition, that's usually the case where you're too early, right? And then you are like in deep tech or something like super early, which needs also fundraising because you need to finance that kind of research.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah, this is how I think about it. If you ask me, do you need to raise funds or not? Big opportunity and competition. Usually big opportunities bring competition, so you need to fundraise and big opportunities.
That's fair. I like how you looking at it from that perspective makes a lot of sense to me. But I love what you said at the beginning. Like, people think fundraising is a success metric. Like, we raised 100 million, where that means we're successful. But that could almost be a death sentence. If you don't fulfill what that is and have a down round and like whatever that could be, there's too much. I'm really happy you said that, because I think people get too excited when they see that. So, okay. How would you then judge? Let's say you saw a company, they raised 100 million. Now, okay, they raised 100 million. My first thought is going to be like, oh, they must be doing something well, or they have a lot, like something's going really well and they have a lot of potential. But I guess since you've now fundraised, you've ran a lot of different startups, how would you judge their success? If it wasn't about how much they raised, what would be for you as Ayham personally be like, oh, okay, no, that is why, in my opinion, they're successful?
For me, a successful business is a business that can make money at some point of its life.
Okay.
It doesn't have to make money today, but it has to have money and good unit economics. Now, a startup that grows very quickly without the healthy unit economics, I don't think it's a good startup unless you can improve the unit economics with a switch, right? For example, you do something, you spend a lot of money today, but you know that in 2 years, if you switch something, you can make money. But if this lever or switch is not there, I don't think it's a good startup, even if they're growing massively.
Okay. So
Now,
there has to be revenue generating potential at some point, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, you spend $1, you make $2. Now you can spend $2 and only make $1.50, but if you have in 2 years the way to switch it and then you suddenly make more money, then that's fine. But a lot of companies don't have that. Or like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, a lot of startups raised millions and millions without having a sense of unit economics. The only success criteria goal was growing. And they failed today.
Yeah. True. So we've talked about I wanted to just round off our conversation for today, Ayham, with just one last question for you. So I think what I loved about our conversation today is I think we touched on almost every area of the founder journey. I really appreciate your honesty. I really appreciate you sharing the challenges that you guys have faced and still do face, because also what we want to show people is that the challenges never go away, man. Even with raising, even when we are in quotation marks successful, there's still very difficult challenges that we're still facing today. The challenges kind of never go away, because, and like you said, depending on what stage you are, but when you're at stage 1, it's very hard for me to appreciate someone like yourself who's at stage like 4 or 5 and the challenges that he's had. It's like, oh no, for sure he's fine. But no, like you've shown us today, no, there's still challenges. We're still learning. We're still trying to grow. And that's why I want people to understand from our podcast and from this conversation. But I'm sure you could give me 10 million different pieces of advice on this question. But if you're reflecting on your founder journey, the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the challenges, and so on, and I'm now coming to you, I'm a first-time founder, what is the one thing, just one, that you have learned that you believe has been the biggest contributor to what you have been able to accomplish?
I started to believe more in myself.
Okay, could you elaborate? When you say believe more in myself, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Beginning of, as said, for me, PEMO was the first VC-funded startups, which I went into a journey where a lot of components I didn't know.
Fair.
And at the beginning, I mean, there's this fear of an entrepreneur. Am I the right person? Can I do it? Can I not do it? And this is probably a very sensitive topic for a lot of people.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
And I was in that journey, but then at some point I realized, actually, I'm quite good.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my shit. The fuck?
I'm quite good in things that I know, and I know what I don't know.
Fair, exactly.
This is what I realized. I started to see my strength, and I started to see my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And this is what I started to believe that my strengths are what I can do with my strength, and I understand my weaknesses, and I try to compensate my weaknesses with my strength.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And the self-belief thing is something every single founder struggles with. And I think, because touching on your point, even if you've been successful before, as we've been talking in this conversation, you've done lots of different startups, but you always said, Khaled, like, I have to come at it with like fresh eyes. Just because I was successful there does not guarantee, me being successful here. And I think that also confuses people sometimes, because it's like, why didn't it work again? But to your point, so the self-belief, I think, is a thing that you will always, as an entrepreneur, it will always be challenged. As the more successes you have, the more lessons you learn, obviously that foundation becomes much stronger. But those questions, those doubts, I think are just normal, and I think they're human. And when you're an entrepreneur, even when it's successful, there's always that element of risk.
100%.
It's always there, you know. As long as it's your business and it's your baby, there's always going to be a risk, whether you like it or not.
No risk, no fun.
Yeah. I got a shirt once that said "No risk, no reward," and that, you know, it just like it hit home for me. You know, that's what it was all about. My man, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us on our first, you know, inaugural episode of the Founder Connects podcast. Couldn't have picked a better guest. We are so excited to, you know, have you as our guest of the month coming up in September, guys. So please make sure to join us at the meetup at Spotlight to see Ayham and ask him, listen to our show and ask him all the questions you've been dying to ask him from this conversation and more. He's going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're very excited to have you, Ayham. I wanted to say once again, man, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I loved this conversation. I had so much fun. I really, really learned a lot. Lots of great debates. And yeah, we're so excited to have you, you know, as our guest next month. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you, Khaled. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure guys. Everyone listening, thank you so much. And we will catch you on the next episode. Please make sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe at Founder Connects on YouTube. And we will see you on the next episode. Take care. Yeah. Yeah. Come on. Sorry. I didn't know that was a pleasure. Great job.
Yeah, it was good.
Great job. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah. Very good.